Okay, today is Tuesday, and we're going to focus on Chapter 10, Lesson 2. Now, I'm showing you Thursday's lesson objectives and vocabulary practice page because tomorrow, Wednesday, we're going to have our Chapter 9 test, and we're also having our vocabulary quiz tomorrow. So, we'll be actually doing the independent practice for Chapter 10, Lesson 2 on Thursday. The objective we're going to be focusing on is describing and calculating measures of central tendency. We've already talked about mean. Today we're going to be talking about median and mode. And tomorrow we're going to introduce the idea of range. Now, I haven't added it yet, but we are going to be getting some new flashcards. So make sure you look out for that because since we are taking our test on Wednesday, by Wednesday and Thursday, there will be new flashcards for you to practice. Okay, median and mode. This is going to remind you of where to find this in the textbook. This is important because when we do a test or a quiz on this, look in the book. Look for examples in the book. Look back at this page. There are plenty of resources for you to use to remember how to do these things. Okay. The very first word that is on our list here is mean. And even though we're not focusing on that today, it is going to come up in some of our questions. Mean is something we did yesterday. So here's a reminder of not only what that is, what it means, but also how to find it. And here's an example of finding the mean on the right side. Median is the piece of data that's exactly in the middle of the data set. If it's an odd number, it's going to be an actual piece of data. If it's an even number, it says right here, you'll take the two middle numbers and you'll add them together and divide by 2. Okay, we're going to practice that in a moment. Mode is the number that occurs the most, and sometimes that might be more than one number, and we're going to have some examples of that later. In this particular situation, the number 81 comes up twice, and nothing else comes up twice, so the mode for this data set is 81. Okay, range again we'll talk about tomorrow, but basically that's when you take the value has the greatest value in a data set, the value with the least value, and you subtract the two to find the range. Okay, now this particular video I'm about to show you is something that I recorded last spring when everything shut down so that I could help review with the students I had then. So if it mentions like days of the week or whatever, don't get confused because this is something that I recorded last spring. Okay, I am going to start to play this, but I will be pausing it, and we're going to be doing some examples and interactive questions. So make sure you have your pencil and paper handy. Also, you need to open up your books to page 792 to begin writing down things in your book. It's really up to you to take notes. We are continuing our study of data analysis. Yesterday's lesson on Monday, we spoke about mean. And mean is something we're pretty familiar with as students because that's what teachers use in order to look at your grades and figure out what your average is and put that in the gradebook. But that's not the only way that you can summarize a data set. There are two other ways we need to be familiar with. One is called the median, and the other is called the mode. Now, in both of these techniques, it's really important if you're looking at data to take all the values and first put them in order from least to greatest. And then the median is going to be the value that appears exactly in the middle of that list, which is really easy to find if it's an odd number. If it's an even number, you take the two values in the middle, add them together, divide by 2, and figure out what would happen, what would be exactly in the middle of those two numbers. Mode, once you put everything in order least to greatest, mode is the number or numbers that occur the most often. So there is a possibility, if you have two different numbers that occur 2 times, you could have 2 modes. Now let's look at some examples. In this first example, we're talking about monkeys at 11 different zoos. And you'll see over here there are quite a few monkeys. In fact, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So those are the 11 zoos. These are not in order least to greatest. So the first thing we're going to do is put them in order least to greatest. So you have the beginning number is 12, and the ending number is 44. Let's pause for a moment because that's important to analyze that data too. There's something called range that we're going to be doing in this lesson as well. If you were to take the largest number and the smallest number and subtract, find the difference, that's called the range, and that's kind of important to understand the data as well. So if we look at this, starting at 12 and ending at 44, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on each side. That means 28 is exactly in the middle. So that's going to be the median. Now, as far as the mode goes, you can see that 18 occurs 2 times. Since that's the number that happens the most often, that's going to be the mode. Okay, so now if we look at another example, so our friend Dina is scoring grades on tests, and you can see these are the test scores that she's received on 7 tests. Now, this is going to be helpful because that's an odd number of tests. So what we're going to do, put them in order from least to greatest. And let's see, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So if you look 3 in on each side, the one that's exactly in the middle is 93. So that is going to be the median, and but 93 also happens twice. So in this case, 93 is also the mode as well because it occurred more than one time, and no other number occurred more than that. Okay, we're going to do an example together. At the bottom of page 792, A says the list shows the number of stories in 11 tallest buildings in Springfield. Determine the median and the mode to summarize the center of data. So we're going to do the median first. So I'm going to circle median. Okay. The very first step when you have a list of a bunch of random numbers is to put them in order least to greatest. So looking at this list, looks like 17 is the smallest. So I'm going to go ahead and write 17. And I'm going to cross things out as I go. 19 will go next. Then 20. What is the next number that should be on the list? Go ahead and answer that for me, please. You're right. That's going to be 21. And then 24. Then 30. What should be next? That's correct, 33. Do this slowly and carefully so you don't make any mistakes. What's next is going to be 37. And then 38. Now, if you'll notice, we have some numbers left. How many times should we write the number 40? Go ahead and answer that for me, please. Correct. We need to make sure we write it twice. Don't just write it once. So I'm going to cross out the 140. Then I'm going to write a second 40. It's very easy to make that mistake. Want to make sure we do this one at a time. Now I'm going to double check that I have the correct number. I'm supposed to have 11 pieces of data. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. That's correct. Okay. So 11 is odd. The next lowest even number is 10. So I should have 5 on each side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So what is going to be the median value? That's correct. The median is going to be 30. So I'm going to label that. That is, okay, so I'm going to label that 30. Now we're going to go back and we're going to look for the mode. So I'm going to go ahead and change my color back to bright blue. And I'll be looking for the mode. Now, if I go back up and look at the definition of the word mode, that is the number that occurs most often. So looking at the set of data that we've written out, is there a number that happens most often? Go ahead and answer that for me, please. That's correct. The answer is 40. 40 happens twice. So the mode is going to be the number 40. Now, let's just pretend that 20 happened more than one time. Then the mode would also be 20 as well. So it doesn't have to, mode can be more than one number. But if there was something that occurred 3 times, that's more than 2 times. So whichever number occurs the most is going to be the mode. Not every number that happens more than one time is going to be the mode. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and continue on with our notes, and we'll do another example together here in just a moment. Okay, now here's where it becomes a little more challenging, because if you look, we have a chart here about the cost of sweaters. You've got 4 bars. That's not an odd number. So what's going to happen if we want to find the median? We're still going to put it in order from least to greatest. So you have 1695 is the smallest. That goes first. Then you have 1899, 1990, 2150. That's the order from least to greatest. But halfway in the middle, there's nothing there. But the 2 numbers that are in the middle, we're going to add them together, divide by 2, and so our median is approximately, because we're going to round this thousandths place to the hundredths place since it's money, the median is going to be 1945. But in this case, there's no mode because nothing happens more than once. So there is not going to be a mode in that example. One more example. Miguel's researching precipitation in several states. We want to compare the median and the mode. So if we'll look, we've got 8 states, different precipitations. We put them in order from least to greatest first. There's 8 values, so what's in the middle is in between these 2 numbers. So to find the median, you're going to add those 2 numbers together, divide by 2, and so 49 and 8/10 is the median. In between 48 and 9/10 and 50 and 7/10. Okay. Now, as far as the mode goes, only one number happens twice, and so the mode is going to be 42 and 2/10. Okay, that's an overview of mode and median. When you look back in the lesson, I'm going to remind you about what mean is, and we're going to do some practice with range as well. Okay, we're going to do one more example together. This time we're going to be using data that's actually an even number to practice finding what is in the middle of all of those numbers. We're going to do C, the cost of juice chart, determine and compare the median and the mode of the cost in the table, summarize the center of the data. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is put this in order from least to greatest. So what's going to be the first number that I write on my list? Go ahead and answer that for me, please. Okay, if you said 1 in 6500ths, you're correct. Now I'm going to pause the video in just a moment to go ahead and write out the rest of these in the order from least to greatest. But what will be the last number that I write on my list? Which one of these numbers has the greatest value? Go ahead and answer that for me, please. If you answered $3.75, you're correct. Okay. It's also really important to remember that as you are writing these down on the list, you need to cross them out to make sure that we don't accidentally forget to write something down. I am going to double check that I have the right number. 2, 4, 6, 8. I should have 8 numbers here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, very good. Which means 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. The mystery number that's going to be the median is somewhere in between $2.45 and $2.49. And one way to do that is to add them both together. So we're going to line up the decimals here. $2.94. Then we take that and we're going to divide that by 2. Make sure you put your decimal up here in the core. 4 times 2 is 8. Okay. All right. This is why we double check. All right. But you know what? The other way you could have solved that is to actually count up. 45 plus what equals 9? That's going to be 4. So if we cut 4 in half, I give 2 cents to what's in the middle. Then $2.45 plus 2 is $2.40. While my pen is starting to behave again, tell me, is there a number that happens more than one time? Because we also have to, after we find the median, also find the mode. What is the number that happens more than one time? Go ahead and answer that for me, please. That's correct. The mode is going to be $2.87. So if we were to determine the median and the mode, and then think about what that means to summarize the center of the data, we can say that the mode is 40 cents more than the median because 47 plus 40 equals 87. So that's one thing um, we can describe about the data. Okay, so I do appreciate your patience, and please come to class. We're going to use examples together. Please go back and look at the videos that are part of the directions page. But we're going to ask that one last question. And again, think about an important fact that you need to remember about this lesson. Don't say, I don't know. Don't say what you taught. Don't say what I heard or what I get some weird answers, but you're going to lose credit for the whole video if you don't seriously think about one thing that's important. So please take some time to do that. So, what is the most important thing that you should remember about this lesson? Go ahead and answer that for me now. Thank you for your thoughtful response, and I will see you later in class.